Ching. That's right, folks. Triple bag alert, triple bag alert, triple bag alert, folks. That's right. We got an episode that's going to be dedicated to money because you know why we like talking about money over here at the Football Junkies podcast, all right? Josh Oliver, Logan Cooke, and Michael Dickson all get paid. J.K. Dobbins heads to Denver. Nick Chubb heads to H-Town. Germaine Pratt heads to Vegas. Shemar Stewart continues to hold out. And my BAGRODOMUS predictions with a few people that are looking for some money, all right? All of this and more on the 83rd episode of the Football Junkies podcast, all right? I am your host with the most. I'm your GM who currently is not on the team right now, but don't you worry about it, all right? Don't you worry about it because guess what? I'm your chief head of the table, anything and everything related to the bag, anything and everything that's related to trades, rumors, speculations, pending moves that may be happening within the next maybe 24, 48, 72, or even longer than that, okay? Because guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. You already know how these things are about to go. Yes, everybody may be on a hiatus, but guess what? The grind still goes over here with the Football Junkies podcast. So guess what? On three, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, before we get into other money topics, let's get into the bag alerts, folks. Okay, so Josh Oliver, tight end for the Vikings, inks a 3-year, $23.2 million deal, $19 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $7.7 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 28 targets for 22 receptions, 258 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and 11.7 receiving yards per reception. Here's the thing with this deal. It's a very team-friendly deal. It doesn't break the bank, and Josh Oliver, from my understanding, is tight end 2 when it comes to the Vikings. He's not this person that's going to wow you on the field, no. But when you give him the ball, he is going to make a play. An angle that needs to be talked about with this move is Jonnu Smith can now demand more money from the Dolphins. Because Jonnu Smith can say, hey, I set this record, I set that record, I did this, I did that. I did all these things better than what Josh Oliver did this past season. So I deserve a little bit more than what he's getting. And granted, Josh Oliver is only making $7.7 million a year. So I think if you're Jonnu Smith, I think you want to bump up your number to maybe 9, maybe 10 million a year because let's be real here. This is going to be his last deal. So you want to make sure that you maximize as much money as you possibly can with this last deal. And if you're the Dolphins, you know that he plays such a pivotal role on the offense that you can't afford to let him go. So you may have to give him a little bit more just to sweeten up the pot. Because right now you're running the risk of potentially having to pay him twice or maybe even 3 times more just because there may be other people who are in contract negotiations right now with their team. And I think depending on what happens with Isaiah Likely this offseason, that may either help the Dolphins or hurt the Dolphins. Now that we got that out the way, let's talk about these punters, all right? So Logan Cooke, punter for the Jaguars, inks a 4-year, $16 million deal. He'll be making $4 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 68 punts for 3,359 punt yards, 3 touchbacks, a 49.4 gross average punt yards percentage, a 4.41 touchback percentage, and 34 inside the 20 punts, as well as a 50% inside the 20 percentage. Logan Cooke, believe it or not, and I actually had to look this up, Logan Cooke is actually a top 10 punter. I didn't realize it, but I had to do some research, and his stats are amazing. So it was only right for the Jaguars to make sure that they take care of their guy. When you have a really good punter, you want to make sure that you keep that punter as long as you possibly can. Because you know why? You will always have a better chance of being in a better position on the field compared to having just a really bad punter where it's going to benefit the opposing team more. We have seen the difference when you have a really good punter who can punt it in a way that it benefits the defense. And we've seen bad punters where it just messes up the entire game plan of I don't know, maybe the second half or the fourth quarter or after the 2 minute warning or whatever the case may be. It's the same thing with Michael Dickson. Michael Dickson just resetted the punter market and he inked a 4-year, $16.2 million deal, and he'll be making $4 million a year. When we look at his stats, 76 punts for 3,756 punt yards, 9 touchbacks, a 49.4 gross average punt yards percentage. These are really good stats for some really good punters. You are talking about punters who really don't get the flowers that they deserve, but they do deserve them just because of how pivotal of a role that they play when it comes to the defense. Just like how you need a quarterback to get a first down, or you need a tight end to score a touchdown, or a pass rusher to get a sack or to get a fumble, punters can do the exact same thing. But you know what the difference is? They use their legs. If you need a punter to kick with inside the 10 or inside the 5 or inside the 15, if you have a really good punter, they can do it. Now, if you don't have a really good punter, it's most likely going to be a touchback, and then you're really going to be upset. But let's get into these signings, all right? So J.K. Dobbins, former Ravens and Chargers running back, inks a 1-year, $2.7 million deal with the Broncos. He gets a $895,000 signing bonus, $2 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $2.7 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 195 attempts for 905 rushing yards, 4.6 rushing yards per carry, 9 touchdowns, and 27 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. This move signals that, for one, the Broncos want to be more effective when it comes to the run game, while at the same time making a low-risk, high-reward type of move in signing someone like a J.K. Dobbins. The only problem with him is, and I know it's out of his control, is just injuries. If you eliminate the injuries from J.K. Dobbins, we will be having a completely different conversation about J.K. Dobbins. He was effective with the Ravens. He's been really effective with the Chargers. Those first maybe 4 to 5 weeks of the season, J.K. Dobbins was a monster. He was doing his thing. And this is him running inside the tackles and outside the tackles. When we look at his stats from inside the tackles, 106 attempts for 498 rushing yards, 4.7 rushing yards per carry, 6 touchdowns, and 13 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. I think with him coming to the Broncos, I think this can expand the offense even more, because we all know Sean Payton loves a really good run game. And with that being said, we need to look at the rushing attack from the Broncos this past season. They were 16th in rushing, and they averaged 112.2 rushing yards per game, 4.1 rushing yards per play, 12 touchdowns, and had 54 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Their inside the run rate was 51.8%, and their outside the run rate was 44%. So this is a match made in heaven for someone like a J.K. Dobbins. And I think this makes the team even better. Let's be real here, folks. The Broncos are going to be a thorn in the Chiefs' side this season, because the Broncos have made substantial changes that is really going to make them more competitive against the Chiefs. You've bolstered up the defense. You've bolstered up the offense. You have a really stable coach. You have a really good quarterback now. These are all the things that you need in order to really go at the Chiefs. And if you're Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you want to try to find an angle that can keep you a little bit more competitive over your division rivals. Because it's not like how it used to be for the past few years, where it's basically been the yellow brick road for the Chiefs division. No, that yellow brick road has now turned into mud. And so now if you're the Chiefs, there has to be a sense of urgency when it comes to your division games. Because now you can't take them lightly. Beforehand, you could. But now, it's a whole different ball game. Because now you have teams that can legitimately put up a fight and can punch you in the mouth. We've seen the Raiders the past few years put up a fight against the Chiefs. Just saying. Because I know there's a lot of people that are saying, well, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Yes, I understand that. But at the same time, their division got a whole lot better. It's going to continue to get better as the years go on. So let's talk about Nick Chubb going to Houston, all right? So Nick Chubb inks a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He'll be making $2.5 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 102 attempts for 332 rushing yards, 3.3 rushing yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, and 5 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. My takeaway is this is a low-risk, high-reward signing. Nick Chubb, yes, is still an effective running back, but he is not the same running back that he was prior to his injury. But here is the thing about Nick Chubb, though. He is just as effective with running inside the tackles as well as outside the tackles. When we look at his stats with inside the tackles, 52 attempts for 164 rushing yards, 3.2 rushing yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and 3 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. When we look at outside the tackles, 50 attempts for 168 rushing yards, 3.4 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 2 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. What was one of the areas that the Texans really needed to work on the most? Their run game. The run game last season was 22nd in the league. They averaged 112.3 rushing yards per game, 4.4 rushing yards per play, 15 touchdowns, 52 rushes of 10 plus yards or more, and had an inside run rate at 39.9% and an outside run rate at 57.1%. Signing Nick Chubb is going to help Joe Mixon, especially towards the end of the season, because guess what? Instead of Joe Mixon taking on a majority of the snaps, he can share those snaps with someone like a Nick Chubb, who is just as effective in both running inside the tackles as well as outside of the tackles. When you look at all the Super Bowl contending teams, what is the one common denominator out of all of them? They all have an effective run game. From the 49ers to the Ravens and even to the Eagles. They are all effective in the run game. And that is why they are able to win some of the games that they win, because you know why? They are able to control the line of scrimmage, control the clock, and in doing so, wear down the defense and disrupt the rhythm for the offense. We all know that one of the best ways to beat Patrick Mahomes is by disrupting his rhythm. And by having a duo like these two, your run game will be a whole lot better. But let's talk about Germaine Pratt going to the Raiders, all right? So Germaine Pratt inks a 1-year, $4.2 million deal. He'll be making $4.2 million a year. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this. I would have thought he would have paired up with his old defensive coordinator, but maybe his market wasn't that strong. Maybe the Colts weren't interested in him at all. I don't know. But, I mean, when we look at this, he's a great tackler. 143 tackles this past season. Not to mention he had 2 picks. He is a really good inside linebacker. And I think pairing him with Landon Roberts is actually great because you have 2 really good tackling inside linebackers. Not to mention Landon Roberts is still really good when it comes to the run game. So all in all, I think this is a really good signing. It doesn't break the bank. He still gets his money. It's a 1-year deal, prove it deal, basically. And then next year he can hit free agency and get more money. So let's get into this whole Shemar Stewart situation. So Shemar Stewart is still not participating with the team and continues to voice his opinion on why the Bengals are doing bad business with him. So let me just give you a recap of what's happened so far, so then we can, get to what's currently going on right now. So Shemar Stewart hasn't participated in rookie minicamp, OTAs, and mandatory minicamp. Now, the reasoning for this is due to language in his contract that is focused on voiding future guarantees. Now, this is what Shemar Stewart had to say, and I quote, "In my case, I'm 100% right. I'm not asking for nothing that's never been done before, but in the team's case, y'all just want to win an argument instead of winning more games, in my opinion," end quote. But the language that's in Shemar Stewart's contract was not found in neither Miles Murphy or Marius Mims' contract. So it begs the question of, what exactly are the Bengals doing? Now, this is what Ted Karras had to say about the contract dispute. And I quote, "The main thing I want to say is I don't think to either of our defensive ends that there's not any harboring resentment in this locker room to them. I really hope that both camps can figure this out because we really have a good team. We've had a super productive spring, and you just don't want this to carry over into the summer," end quote. Now, this is what Zach Taylor had to say about this situation, and I quote, "I think there's education that happens with all the rookies that we do our best to educate them. Number one, we want to protect our team and our locker room. And so there's some things I understand when there's frustration there, but that's how he chose to do it, and that's his prerogative, and we look forward to getting him back in the fold," end quote. But here's the part that nobody is talking about. Shemar Stewart has options to resolve this matter. So per the CBA, Shemar Stewart can refuse to sign and demand a trade. The window for trading an unsigned draft pick expires 30 days before the first game of the regular season. If unsuccessful, the Bengals will be unable to trade Shemar Stewart for the entire 2025 season, regardless if he signs or doesn't. Shemar Stewart can wait until the Tuesday of Week 10 and still play. If unsuccessful, he will be unable to play all of 2025. Per the CBA, the arbitrator must make a decision within 5 days of the application, and the decision, and I quote, shall be final and binding upon all parties. He can also refuse to sign at all until the 2026 draft begins, which then he will be re entered into the draft pool and the Bengals will be unable to draft him. The next option that he has is Shemar Stewart could return to college but will face a lengthy legal battle with the NCAA. Another option, which I don't think this is probably going to happen, is that Shemar Stewart could refuse to sign with the Bengals and play in another league such as the UFL or CFL. However, if Shemar Stewart plays in another league in the 12 months after being drafted, the Bengals will hold his rights for 3 years after the 2025 draft. Afterwards, the Bengals would have the right of first refusal to any contract Shemar Stewart would sign with another NFL team. The lesson from this entire situation is this: players are becoming smarter when it comes to conducting their business. Instead of just signing on the dotted line, they're reviewing the language of the contract, and they're allowing their agents as well to review the language of the contract just to see if everything is correct. We have seen multiple times where players have just signed bad contracts and are put in very bad situations for long periods of time. And so now you have someone in Shemar Stewart who is saying, hey, listen, this wasn't in Amarius Mims' contract, nor Miles Murphy's. So why is it in my contract? And granted, I would understand if they were putting in this clause because he's had an extensive injury history in college or he had off the field issues in college. I would have no problem with this. But because neither of those two things happened while he was in college, there is no need for Shemar Stewart to have that type of language within his contract. Because then you guys are saying, listen, we are banking on you to make a mistake so that we can void all of your future guarantees so that we can keep that money. That is something that a shady business would do. If I'm a future NFL draft prospect, I am publicly saying, listen, I'm not going to the Bengals. Because I understand that, listen, for one, they may try to do the same thing that they're doing to Shemar Stewart. And two, we have seen that they have had a history in doing shady business with their players. At some point, somebody has to be the bigger person in the room when it comes to the Bengals front office, and they have to say, listen, just take out the language. Get rid of it and just give him the contract that he wants. Because right now, what you're doing is playing a dangerous game of chicken. And the Bengals are going to blink first. But I think a question that needs to be asked is, how long is Shemar Stewart going to hold out? Because he knows the longer that this holds out, the more this could actually hurt the Bengals even more. Because as I just said with the CBA, he could re-enter into next year's draft class. Which, if I'm Shemar Stewart, I probably would do, because guess what? If that happens, the Bengals won't be able to draft you. Now, it may come at the cost of you not being drafted in the first round, but I still believe that there are a lot of teams that are very interested in Shemar Stewart. And I think they still would draft him if he was available in next year's draft. So at this point, if Shemar is really serious about this, I would say just hold out as long as you possibly can. Because at some point, the Bengals are going to get desperate. At some point, the pressure is going to be put on them so much that they're going to have to do something. Now, if you're Joe Burrow, you're probably going to have to put on the hero cape once again, and you're going to have to get in the Bengals' ass again because they continue to do bad business. And best believe the Players Association are keeping their eye on this dispute right now, because this could have lasting effects on the league moving forward. So stay tuned with this situation. But let's talk about some more money, all right? BAGRODOMUS predictions, all right? I got my BAGRODOMUS cape on. I got my BAGRODOMUS hat on. Let's just get into it, all right? So Terry McLaurin, do I think he's going to get re-signed? Yes. I understand there's a lot of Steelers fans right now that want Terry McLaurin. Best believe Washington is not going to let him go, all right? So Spotrac's market value for him is 3 years, $93.1 million, which is $31.1 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $130 million, which is $32.5 million a year. Terry McLaurin has been the most consistent and loyal player of the Washington franchise. You are talking about somebody who has been through a slew of changes since getting into the league, from multiple head coaches to multiple quarterbacks, offenses, you name it, he's been through it all. But he's always been consistent. In some ways, he's been like Mike Evans. Mike Evans has gone through somewhat of the exact same thing that Terry McLaurin has gone through. Multiple head coaches, multiple quarterbacks, good seasons, bad seasons, iffy seasons. He's been through it all. But guess what? He's always been loyal to the franchise and he's always been consistent. So it's only right that you take care of Terry McLaurin the right way. Now, I understand the role of a GM is to make sure that you give the best deal possible that doesn't hurt the franchise. But at some point, you're going to have to maybe sweeten up the pot a little bit for someone like a Terry McLaurin. It's not going to hurt you because why? There's nobody else on the team that is looking for money. Terry McLaurin is the only person. And by the time this deal is over with, guess what? Then it'll be time for you to pay big money to Jaden Daniels. But by not paying Terry McLaurin, you could potentially hurt Jaden Daniels' growth. Do you really want to take that risk? No. So it's only right that you take care of somebody that has been through it all, that has been consistent, that hasn't been a troublemaker, that has been an upstanding player for this franchise. Now, when we look at Trey Hendrickson's situation, me personally, there's only two options with this. Either he's going to hold out or he's going to get traded. Now, Sporak's market value for him is 2 years, $62.9 million, which is $31.5 million a year. My prediction is a 1 year, $32.1 million deal, $32.1 million a year. I think giving Trey Hendrickson just a 1 year deal is just the best course of action at this point, because right now, the longer that this goes, the worse that it's going to hurt the Bengals. So I think if you trade him away and that team just gives him a 1 year deal, okay, cool, you're on for another year, and then by the time the deal is over with, you can hit free agency and still get another bag if you really want to. Because right now, the Bengals have shown that they're not willing to pay Trey Hendrickson. So somebody is going to make a crazy trade for Trey Hendrickson. Now, do I think it's going to be someone like the Eagles or the Lions or, I don't know, the 49ers or the Rams or somebody like that? Yes. And I think they will be willing to give him a 1 year extension. I don't think he wants to sign a long-term extension anyway. Moving on, I think Garrett Wilson is going to re-sign as well. Sporak's market value for him is 3 years, $73 million, which is $24.3 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $95.2 million, which is $23.8 million a year. Garrett Wilson is a little bit of a tricky situation only because he's not in that top echelon of receivers, but I feel like he's on that tier with someone like a Drake London, and that's perfectly fine because you're still a really productive receiver. Now, here's the question. If you're Garrett Wilson, do you want a long-term deal or do you want a short-term deal? Now, with a short-term deal, by the time the deal is up, you're able to re-up again and you'll still be in your prime. But if you get the long-term extension, you run the risk of going through another wave of changes. Do you really want to go through that? No. So just sign the short-term deal so that way, if you feel like you're going to garner a lot of interest in that upcoming free agency class, you can make a decision on if you want to stay with the Jets or if you want to test the free agency market in its entirety. Now let's keep on going. Drake London. I think he's either going to be re-signed or he's just going to play out the rest of the season. Now his market value according to Sporak is 3 years, $73.1 million, which is $24.4 million a year. My prediction is 3 years, $75.4 million, which is $25.1 million a year. So if you're Drake London, you will probably take the same route that I just said with Garrett Wilson. You sign a short-term deal with the understanding that once this deal is over with, I'll still be in my prime, which means I'll still have a lot of interest from a lot of teams. Moving on, TJ Watt. So his market value is 4 years, $146.5 million, which is $36.6 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $158 million, which is $39.5 million a year. Me personally, I feel like I probably could have bumped that number up even a little bit more. But my question with TJ Watt is this. Are you looking to reset the market? Are you willing to take another team-friendly deal? Or what exactly you're trying to do? Because if I'm TJ Watt, I may be looking at resetting the market. Because I am still one of the best pass rushers in the league, if not the best pass rusher in the league. So I feel like there's a lot of questions that need to be asked with TJ Watt's situation. And I also feel like there is some frustration with TJ Watt simply because the Steelers took care of DK Metcalf fairly well, and they really didn't do that for TJ Watt. And mind you, as a GM, you always want to make sure that you take care of your guys first. The guys that you drafted and developed and you saw them grow over time. Not somebody that you brought in via trade or free agency or whatever. And this is no shot at DK Metcalf at all. But it looks a little bit weird if you're giving more money to the person that you're bringing in instead of the person that is homegrown. That's like you going out to McDonald's with your friends. And instead of you treating everybody to McDonald's, you only treat 2 or 3 people and then everybody else has to fend for themselves. That's not going to look right. So if I'm TJ Watt, I'm breaking the bank. I'm looking to reset the market possibly. Unless the team is telling me, hey, listen, we're in the works of trying to acquire another player for either the offense or the defense. If you take a little bit less, they'll give us more cap flexibility. So that way we'll be able to acquire them. If that's the case, okay, fine. I'll take a little bit of a lesser deal. But if that's not the case, well, then I'm looking to reset the market because I deserve to reset the market because every time that I'm on the field, I change games. We all have seen the record when TJ Watt is on the field and when he isn't on the field. So it's only right that you lock him up and you make him a Steeler for life. Now, Aiden Hutchinson's situation is a little bit weird, and I'll explain just a little bit. So Spirax market value for him is 4 years, $141.2 million, which is $35.3 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $141.2 million, which is $35.3 million a year. Here's the thing with Aiden Hutchinson. Now, is he a top 5 pass rusher? No. Is he a top 10, maybe top 15 pass rusher? Yes, I'll give him that. But the question is this: whose contract are you going to model? Are you going to model Nick Bosa's contract? Are you going to model Max Crosby's contract? Are you going to model TJ Watt's current contract? Whose contract are you going to model? Because right now, you don't want to keep on resetting the market for a whole bunch of players while at the same time you're still trying to be in a good situation with your cap. That's my only concern with Aiden Hutchinson. It's not the injuries, it's not the play, it's none of those things. It's you want to be able to still be in a good place where you have some cap flexibility. So if there's somebody that you really want that you can acquire via trade or free agency, you're able to do it without having to do a whole bunch of restructures. Now with Micah Parsons, that's a ticking time bomb, and I'm going to explain in a little bit. So his market value is 4 years, $145.1 million, which is $36.3 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $150 million, which is $37.5 million a year. Now, a few days ago, somebody was able to take a couple pictures of Micah Parsons talking to Jerry Jones, and apparently Micah and Jerry were talking about numbers. And Micah told Jerry, hey, listen, talk to my agent so we can finalize the deal and get things done. Since then, nothing has been finalized, nothing has been talked about. So if I'm Micah Parsons, do I want to play the waiting game and see what TJ Watt and Aiden Hutchinson and Trey Hendrickson is going to get? Or do I want to get my deal out the way first? Because I'll wait a little bit just so I can get a little bit more money. But if I just want to be a team player, I'll just sign the deal now so that way I don't have to worry about it. Now, Kyle Hamilton re-signed. His market value was 3 years, $60.8 million, which is $20.3 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $88.4 million a year, which is $22.1 million a year. Kyle Hamilton is one of the best safeties in the league, if not the best safety in the league. He is literally the 1A or 1B to Antoine Winfield Jr. There is nobody else that is better than those two safeties. So it is only right for the Ravens to reset the market for this great safety. Now, here's the thing with Lamar Jackson's situation. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for it, but I really don't care. So re-sign, okay, we already got that out the way. So his market value is 5 years, $340.5 million, which is $68.1 million a year. My prediction is 5 years, $290 million, which is $58 million a year. So here's the thing. Me personally, I don't feel like you should pay a quarterback $60 million a year, and here's why. Paying a quarterback $60 million is not a good move because it puts a strain on the cap space, which if you're a Super Bowl team, you want to be able to have cap flexibility. Because say for instance, there's somebody that you really want to be able to get in the trade deadline, but you can't do it because why? You just gave your quarterback $60 million. You're going to be tearing your hair out. There's no need for you to do it. Now, if you're somebody that has won multiple Super Bowls, you're dominant in the post game, and you've won MVPs, and you're top five, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, okay, fine, whatever. Do whatever you want to do, don't care. But if you haven't won an MVP, if you haven't been to the Super Bowl, let alone the divisional championship, there is no need for you to be asking for $60 million. That's why I was very critical about Dak Prescott getting his deal. Because guess what? He didn't deserve that money. He hasn't been to a Super Bowl. He hasn't been to an NFC championship. He hasn't won an MVP. He's not even the top 5 quarterback in the league. So why would you pay him $60 million? It's ludicrous. If you're Lamar Jackson, you want to stay away from that $60 million a year mark. Because guess what? If you haven't made it to the Super Bowl, if you haven't won a Super Bowl, everyone is going to be saying the same thing. Did the Ravens overpay Lamar Jackson? Does he deserve that deal? Do you think they should move off of him? What should they do now? They can't do anything because they gave Lamar Jackson $60 million a year. You don't want that publicity. If I was Lamar, I would take a little bit less so the team can have cap flexibility so that if they need to add somebody, they can go and add somebody without having to do a whole bunch of restructures and moving money around, while at the same time, I am prolonging the Super Bowl window for the team. So on to the next candidate we have, and that is James Cooke. Now for him, I would say just play out the rest of your deal. Now his market value according to Spot Rack is 4 years, $40.8 million, which is $10.2 million a year. My prediction is 3 years, $25 million, which is $8.3 million a year. Now if I'm James Cooke, I'm taking a shorter term deal just because for one, I can get all of my money up front, and by the time the deal is over with, I'll still be in my prime so that I can re-up for another deal. Because I don't know any team that would be willing to give him over $8 million a year. I think a team will probably lowball him, especially these playoff contending teams. They would definitely lowball him. And if it's a team like the Jaguars that will give him this crazy deal, guess what? They'll move off of him the next year. We've seen it before. They do it every single offseason. Now on to Rashawn Slater. So of course he's going to get re-signed. Now his market value is 5 years, $127.5 million, which is $25.5 million a year. My prediction is 4 years, $108 million, which is $27 million a year. We all know that left tackles get paid a whole bunch of money. So it's only right that the Chargers give him a boatload of money because why? He's the left tackle. And you always pay the left tackle over the right tackle. Just saying. All right. Now on to the final person, Sauce Gardner. So with him, he'll most likely be re-signed. So his market value, 3 years, $64.9 million, which is $21.7 million a year. My prediction is 3 years, $68 million, which is $22.6 million a year. Here's the thing with Sauce Gardner. If I'm him, for one, I'm taking a short-term deal. I don't want to do a traditional 4 or 5 year deal. I want all of my money up front. So just in case this team goes right back to the shithole, guess what? I can move off and I can hit free agency and be in a much better situation. Not to mention, I still want to prove that I'm still one of the better corners in the league because I had a down year. And so that probably affected his confidence, and it probably affected a lot of people's outlook on Sauce Gardner. So I would just take the shorter term deal, but you guys let me know in the comments, all right? So I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you were listening, please make sure you guys leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, all right? We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts, all right? Now, for my podcast people, make sure you guys leave a review if you guys possibly can. I would definitely appreciate it. Now, for my YouTube people, like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on my BAGRODOMUS predictions. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you have better predictions than what I have? Let's talk about it, all right? Now, when you go on our YouTube, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod, there is a link tree. When you click on that link tree, it will take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content. Now for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. Whenever I post the new episode, the link to that new episode is always in the bio, all right? It'll take you to the YouTube, and most likely you'll see the brand new episode. Now for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, all right? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is now what? It is together, not spaced. All right. It is together, not spaced. Football_junkies pod. All right. Now for my blue sky people, GM Kale. All right. GM Kale, Kaile. It's the same thing with X, previously known as Twitter. Excuse me. GM Kale, GMKAILE. You can also listen to us via RSS feed by just simply going on Google and typing in Football Junkies Podcast RSS feed, and we should be one of the first links to pop up, all right? As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And as always, this is your GM Kale signing out. Peace and love later. Happy Father's Day to every father. Happy Father's Day to my dad. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. You supported me in everything that I've done. And I just want to say I love you and I appreciate you so much. So this is your GM Kale signing out. Peace and love later.